Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Catholic Citizen, where we bring you this week's news from a Catholic perspective. My name is Peter Range. I am the senior fellow at the Center for Christian Virtue out of Columbus. It's one of Ohio's largest Christian public policy firm. It probably is the largest. We do a lot of great work for life, family, and faith. And on today's show, I'm talking about President Trump, his faith advisory office, the Houthi group chat, as well as how the left is kind of attacking him. And lastly, Trump derangement syndrome. I want to talk about that. It is real, and it's real on the left and the right. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. But let's go ahead and dive right in. And well, actually, before we dive right in, we need your help and support. So please visit us at thecatholiccitizen.com. Support us. $1, $5, $10, $20, $2,000 will help us kind of get this message out there far and wide. And look, folks, we need it now more than ever. We talked about the Hope and Future report that we released to the Center for Christian Virtue, and the reality that 42% of our kids here in the state of Ohio are born without their dad in the household. We have a culture which is collapsing. And it's collapsing at the very base root levels, the root of family. And so we have to rebuild the family. And so this show is about that. It's about rebuilding the family. It's about the culture of life, rebuilding a culture which respects the dignity and value of every single human life. And we happen to believe that our Catholic Christian values are at the core of kind of transforming the society back to where it needs to be. So join us at thecatholiccitizen.com. But let's get into this week's news. All right, the Houthi group chat. Unless you've been hiding under a rock, you may have not seen this, but Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, apparently he or someone on his team accidentally or purposefully, don't know, added Jeffrey Goldberg. He is the Atlantic journalist who's been highly critical of President Trump and his previous administration. Highly critical, to say the least. Now, he was added to a group chat that discussed sensitive material and discussion around the bombing of Houthi rebels in the Suez Canal. So because the Houthi rebels, who are basically financed by Iran, they've been terrorizing American commercial ships, European commercial ships around the Suez Canal. So the Americans have said, we're not going to mess around with that. We're going to take care of this problem and issue. And they created this group chat basically to kind of inform all the major leaders in the government, hey, this is what's going on. This is when things are happening. So you can inform your, counterparts in other governments. This is the action that we're taking. Now, Pete Hegseth, who's the defense secretary, blasted the Atlantic article telling reporters on Monday that nobody was texting war plans. Hegseth billed Goldberg as, quote, deceitful and highly discredited journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, referring to the Russia hoax and things of that nature. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg was listed as JG on the chat. Everybody else on the chat who may have jumped on the Signal chat, they were invited by Waltz, National Security Advisor. They would have seen JG. Very easily could have been mistaken for Jamieson Greer. She's a trade representative in the Trump administration. They're discussing trade there in the Suez Canal. So all those things could have happened. Now, the Pentagon said, hey, no information shared, posted a threat to any troops, nor the operation. The operation was successful. Marco Rubio, again, kind of reiterating the point that this chat was created to inform their counterparts of the actions that were taken. Nick, I don't know if you can bring up the chat, though, but super interesting to read J.D. Vance, the vice president's comments on this when he's talking about the way that Europe's going to view this and everything. But here is the bottom line on this. There's no way around this. This is a huge blunder on the part of someone. And no matter what Pentagon says, this information, to me, it puts lives at risk. I mean, Pete Hegseth, on the Secretary of Defense on the thread, says this is when the first bombs are going to drop. So if it's not Jeffrey Goldberg, but it's maybe a more malicious actor who's on the chat, or someone who really wants to mess with United States national security, that puts troops, that puts their lives at risk. And so whoever did this, and look, there's some people posted online that Alex Wan, who is Mike Waltz's national security advisor, I think, for China, is actually married to a lawyer who's been prosecuting Trump's January 6th, or the people who were involved in January 6th. So they're pointing to maybe that he did this. Who knows? Who knows who did it? How it ended up. Mike Waltz went on Fox News and tried to explain it. His explanation didn't make sense, at least to me, as far as how it ended up, how Jeffrey Goldberg ended up on the chat. But there wasn't necessarily like war plans that were on the chat, but certainly sensitive information about them discussing this. And again, JD Vance's comments talking about what we need to consider in this situation. These are things that they should be talking about and in a private chat, and it should not be made public.
I do have the CNN link that was in your show notes that has I'm looking at the heading right now, detailed plans shared, and it shows like F-18's launch, first strike package. So I'm showing that right now on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was a part very early on where JD is actually talking about President Trump, and he says, like, I don't think he understands, how this message or what this action does to our messaging on Europe and so on and so forth. So just really, really interesting stuff when you actually read the chat, and it's conversations that, they should be having at the highest levels of national security. It should not be public, though. So whoever did this needs to be fired. And if it was Mike Waltz, and God bless him, he seems like a great guy, seems like a competent guy, but if he put Jeffrey Goldberg on there, you can't let that happen. I'm sorry, but this is just awful. So second story now today. Paula White, she is the senior advisor to Trump's newly created White House Faith Office. So good thing, White House Faith Office. Bad thing, Paula White's been appointed to it. Paula White just recently posted a video where it is said that you can receive 7 supernatural blessings when you give her $1,000. Like, you just can't make this stuff up.
This is so weird, right? I mean,
it's not just weird. It's the definition of like grifting, the definition of like taking advantage of people. Donate to me and you will receive these spiritual blessings. And she is a part of the White House Faith Office. Folks, when President Trump does good things, praise him. When he does bad things, we also say that too. And are you showing the video right now?
I have it playing on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You could let it play, but absolutely unbelievable. Now,
but wait, just to be clear, Pete, if
yes.
people become patrons of the Catholic Citizen by making a monthly contribution, how many spiritual blessings will they receive?
I don't know. Hopefully many more than 7. But if you give me 1,000, I will do whatever I can do to make it a lot of blessings for you. Anyway, all right. The Democratic playbook to stop President Trump, story number 3. Steve, I think his name's Dietz. He's a podcaster, has his own show, really smart guy. But he talked about, and I think he's right. I looked this up the other day, the Democratic playbook to stop President Trump this term. So you had those hoaxes and everything that kind of went on. And whether you agree with President Trump or not, or his policies, he is the president and he does have a right to kind of issue executive orders and so on and so forth. So the way that the Democrats are approaching stopping him is through judicial fiat this term. So against President Trump's executive orders and actions, there has been 46 judicial injunctions. So a judge steps in and says, hey, you can't do that. Now, compare that to the presidencies of the last 100 years. In the last 100 years, there was 27 injunctions. So in these first few months of the Trump administration, there is basically double the amount of injunctions against his executive actions. Now, not judging the actions on their merits because they haven't even played out yet, but simply as soon as they're signed, they're going to the courts to try to fight this. So this is now the attempt to stop anything that he's trying to do is through the judicial branch. I don't think, again, we want to set this precedent moving forward for future presidents. When you think about this, I mean, put the shoe on the other foot. You got a Democratic president, and all these are sent to Republican judges to stop what he's trying to do. You have to allow the executive branch to be the executive branch a little bit. Now, if those actions lead to something nefarious and or they do something wrong or bad or something like that, or they're not effective, all right, then go to the courts or something. But give the guy a chance to be the president. And a lot of these are very basic things, like, does the president have the power to enforce immigration laws? Yes, he does. And it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and he's going to say that. But basically, the Supreme Court's going to say that. But basically, this is just taking years off of getting to the Supreme Court to kind of officially rule on these things. All right, number 4. Speaking about the playbook to stop President Trump, this is to stop any Republican, anybody who's conservative, or anybody who's Democrat who doesn't fall in line with whatever the Democratic narrative is. So most recently, the Democratic mayor of New York City, who started saying some things that were similar to what we've heard from Democrats 10, 15 years ago about immigration, saying we're being overrun here in New York City. We don't know what to do. And then he was kind of blackballed. But with that being said, the chief executive officer, Catherine Maher, was on to testify congressional testimony on Wednesday that her organization, NPR, National Public Radio, whether or not they're biased. And so we're not biased. Meanwhile, they read her own tweets back to her about Trump is deranged, crazy, absolutely insane, going to destroy the country, that she enjoys white privilege, that people are inherently racist, all these things. And she's like, well, my views on this have evolved. That's amazing. Her views have evolved in that short of a time. Maybe they have. However, when you look at her board, 87 editorial positions on her board are filled by Democrats in DC. There are 0 Republicans on NPR's editorial board. Yeah. Okay. All right. Not biased. Number 5 story. JD Vance, I don't know if you saw this recently, went to speak to Marines, did some firing of some weapons, and he posted on X, he gave in the speech, and then it was posted by William Wolf, who's a part of the Center for Baptist Leadership, quote, no more quotas, no more ridiculous mumbo jumbo, no more diversity trainings, end quote. Went on to talk about how the Marines are here to fight and win wars, and that's what we're going to train you to do. Thank you, JD Vance. We finally have an administration that remembers what our Army, our Navy, our Marines are for. They're created, formed, shaped to protect the country and to fight wars and battles. And so the fact that we're going to do that now as a country puts us in a safer space. I liked William Wolf's comment only because he said, straight in the veins, now let's see our church leaders do the same. Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, that's kind of powerful. All right. Last story here, Trump derangement syndrome. And look, if you're watching the show and you think Trump is the greatest threat to democracy that's ever existed, or you're watching the show and you think President Trump is the greatest president this country has ever had, you're welcome here, okay? Look, I'm friends with people with very far left views, and I'm friends with people with far right views. I share on the show my views, which I think are based upon a Catholic perspective. That's how I try to educate my conscience. And I'm just asking you to try to do the same. But Robert George from Princeton recently posted on his Facebook page about Trump derangement syndrome. And I think some of his thoughts here are really worthy of us reflecting upon, no matter where we're at in the Trumpian world. We're 100% for him or 100% against him. And so let me just read a little bit of it, and then we'll comment. I'll repeat here something I've noted before. Donald Trump possesses an odd ability to derange both his fiercest opponents and his most ardent supporters. People in both categories obsess about him and have allowed him to alienate them from their own core beliefs and principles, in some cases out of hostility to him, and in others out of devotion to him. They have abandoned core convictions they once held and had no independent good reason to give up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here talking about all Trump critics or all Trump supporters. There are plenty of non-deranged people in both camps. I like to think that I'm one of them. But I'm talking about a subset in both categories and something else about those subsets. I've noticed when Trump deranges them and they abandon beliefs, they become ferocious towards the people who retain those beliefs, even if those people were once their friends and allies. What's with that? Something weird is going on there psychologically. I think of in vitro fertilization or the abortion issue. You had so many people just embracing where Trump was going on this for whatever reasons. But we have to step back and maintain some core beliefs. President Trump's not always going to be president. He's not always going to be running the Republican Party. He's not always going to be in charge, if you will, of the conservative movement. He has a unique personality that's arisen during this time and been appointed in his position. But he's not the end all be all to truth. Now, my plea to everybody, George continues, whether Trump critics or Trump supporters, don't let him derange you. And I see this on the left a lot, like all my friends on the left posting nearly daily about President Trump, President Trump, President Trump. Look, folks, he didn't destroy the country his first 4 years in office. He's not going to destroy the country these 4 years in office. Just take a deep breath a little bit. Oppose him if you think what all things consider best for the country. Support him if you think that's what all things consider best for the country. But don't obsess about him or let him alienate you from your principles. If you're a Trump critic, don't give up a belief because Trump, or at least now, and his supporters happen to hold it. If you're a Trump supporter, don't embrace a belief that you formerly rejected or would otherwise reject just because Trump has adopted it. Many things we can go over there. Another word to both sides, and he finishes with this. It's not all about Donald Trump. Don't let it be all about Donald Trump. Don't let a loathing of Trump or a devotion to Trump be the thing driving your thinking. Very important. And that's for every politician, folks. Don't let a loathing or devotion to a particular figure be the thing driving your thinking. What should be driving your thinking is the Word of God, is the tradition of the Holy Catholic Church, which Jesus Christ himself established. So not one president nor one pope should necessarily push us to believe one thing or another. It is the endless, timeless, never-changing things, the Alpha and the Omega, Jesus Christ himself, revealed in the scriptures and revealed in the tradition and length and breadth and depth of the church, which we follow. So thanks so much for following us here at the Catholic Citizen as we try to point you back